welcome to the second episode of the Rejuvenation Roundup podcast, where we explore the latest in life extension and anti-aging science with a dive into a month's worth of insights and new breakthroughs. This podcast is a combined effort of the Life Extension Advocacy Foundation, which operates Lifespan.io, and Future Grind, a podcast that explores the ethics and implications of emerging science and technology. I'm Ryan O'Shea, and I'll be your host. September is upon us, and that means that it's time to recap August 2018 in this second episode of the Rejuvenation Roundup podcast. To find out more about any of these topics, you can visit lifespan.io/roundup. First up, some investment news. The fight against aging is being taken more and more seriously by a growing number of investors who realize the world-changing potential of effective rejuvenative treatments, as well as the great opportunity for profit. Juvenescence Limited, who had recently closed a $10 million deal with iCore Therapeutics and Toxerine, has now announced their $43 million investment in Biotime's Agex Therapeutics, a company focused on extending healthy human lifespan. Speaking of iCore Therapeutics, they recently launched Grapeseed.bio, a strategic fund to help rejuvenation startups grow by providing seed funding, mentorship, and laboratory access. Grapeseed.bio has thus far raised funds in the order of millions of dollars for rejuvenation startups. On August 6th, San Diego-based biotech company SamuMed announced having raised $438 million for the development of anti-aging therapies, with a focus on osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and Alzheimer's disease. While we're talking about investments, we'd like to remind you of Leaf's Longevity Investors Network, our own initiative to foster investments in rejuvenation research. If you are interested in becoming an investor or want to pitch your own startup, you can find out how to get involved at lifespan.io/roundup. In August, 3 more renowned experts have joined our advisory boards, namely Stephen Guran from the Center for Research and Education on Aging, Dr. Irina Conboy from UC Berkeley, and Michael Cope from the SENS Research Foundation. We're thrilled to have them on board, and we look forward to working with them. Thanks to the generosity of our community, in late 2017, we crowdfunded the AgeMeter biomarker system, a device to measure several aging biomarkers and estimate a patient's functional age, which may differ from chronological age. The device is an iOS-based tablet that has been endorsed by researchers such as Dr. George Church and Dr. David Sinclair. To find out more about AgeMeter, we spoke with its creator, Elliot Small.
My name is Elliot Small. I'm president of a company called Centers for Age Control Incorporated. And as you may know, we have just developed, via a successful crowdfunding campaign at Lifespan.io, a new system called the AgeMeter Biomarker Scan. This device enables researchers or medical practices to validate aging interventions. The true test of whether or not a person is functioning younger is to measure whether or not he can actually perform as if he were at a younger age. This is also a good validation for other types of estimated ages, such as biological age from genetic tests and biological age from biochemical tests, because even those estimates are validated once you actually put the person to the test as far as physically being able to perform at the age that is indicated. We're quite excited to announce that this product is shipping the first week of September after, as we said, the successful crowdfunding campaign by Lifespan.io, for which we are quite grateful. And each AgeMeter around the world will be connected to our database via the internet cloud. This means that every time a test is taken, the data is anonymously uploaded, and that way our database continues to grow to many, many results, making the database more accurate over time as a resource to estimate each person's functional age. relative to what is normal for each biomarker. There will be 15 biomarkers initially. The cloud will allow us to upgrade the system, the software automatically without much intervention, if any, from each user. You can get more information at AgeMeter.com. And any of you who are in a position to use this, we look forward to hearing from you.
The AgeMeter can be purchased on their website, and it will be delivered to crowdfunding campaign backers as early as September 4th. We all understand that the more that scientific research is widespread and freely accessible, the faster all-around progress can be made, including in the field of life extension. Yet, scientific papers are often behind paywalls, forcing individuals or universities to spend a significant amount of their budget to buy access to the information. This flawed system is the subject of Paywall, the Business of Scholarship, a new documentary from journalist and university professor Jason Schmidt. We spoke with Jason to find out more about this problem and his film.
We started off with a shoestring budget. I've been a professor for a decade now, and one of the virtues is I have lots of great students that are able to do great work and also happen to work for far less than market price. So I had that kind of in my back pocket, and I also am a journalist. I've written regularly for Huffington Post and Forbes and other outlets, and as a journalist, I regularly reported on open access, and it was really something that just intrigued me personally, especially years ago when I learned that $25 billion a year goes into academic publishers, for-profit academic publishers, away from education, away from science, away from progress. This fuels these for-profit companies to have incredible profit margins, and we're talking 35 to 40% profit margin. More than Facebook, more than Google, more than Apple computers. So that was attractive as a journalist, right? And so I'd write about these topics and just saw the global outreach for this subject, and at the same time saw the almost sterilization of the topic by some of the biggest publishers, which it makes perfect sense. If I was making that type of profit margin and bringing in billions of dollars for really little, if no work, I'd want to maintain that system of equilibrium as long as possible too. So I saw it as a journalist. I had these experiences as a professor. I know these other great videographers and animators that were willing to work for very little, and so we put it all together. Got a small modest grant that allowed us to do this, and we tackled this project. And for the last year and a half, my crew and I have traveled, I think, 45,000 miles. We've been to all sorts of iconic venues, the Smithsonian and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We've been to just, kind of the Royal Society of London, these iconic places, and just, almost all the Ivy Leagues and all these great, locations that have top scholars that think about publishing or just want to publish their research and realize the ludicrousy of this common situation we're in. Harvard clearly realizes it. In 2000, I think it was 13, they sent a letter to all their faculty, Harvard, the richest library on planet Earth, that they could no longer afford to subscribe to this massive array of journals that Harvard Library subscribes to. And that was just the beginning. And so, as we're, doing this and traveling and talking to all these leaders and spending time at, at nonprofits and for-profits, and we spent some time at Springer Nature and, just listening to all these conversations, the future, I think, is pretty clear. I mean, there's no way that the system's going to continue to perpetuate itself in the manner it has. I should say, back many years ago, I was at Atlantic Records when Napster came out, and I saw how Napster quickly uprooted the whole recording industry. Within 2 years, we saw Napster come in, and all of a sudden, we were all out of a job. And I don't think that's bad. I don't think that that's wrong, right? I mean, at the time it was wrong. Like Metallica was like suing grandmothers in Idaho or something. But as years progress, you see that as the disruption that enables progress. And now we have Spotify, and we have the ability to have access to every single song on our iPhones. And then take that analogy and put it over to scholarship. Heck yeah, Elsevier's hemming and hawing about this current situation because it suits them. It suits their prerogative. But shortly, we're going to see this system, like music, rectify itself. And in the interim, it's also equally complex because open access means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and there's all sorts of infighting and outfighting. Everybody doesn't get along, both in the open access community and especially when you cross the aisle into the for-profit community. So there's all these little disruptions, and it's kind of overwhelming when you see it firsthand. I think that there's been a massive push towards these hybrid open access journals that we're seeing a lot of big publishers do. Elsevier's journal Cognition has an article processing charge of $2,150 if you want to publish your article and make it open to the world, so that a Nepal-based researcher could have access to that where they might not prior to you being able to pay that money. But that creates a kind of a disillusion with what open access is. So you're paying multiple thousands of dollars to some of these for-profit publishers to publish these journals, but they're not reducing the cost of these journals for any institution that's under all these cumbersome weights of current society. No, they're just that's an extra add-on profit stream for these publishers, and I don't think that's sustainable, and I don't think that's actually helping to further the open access conversation. So we address these, and we're looking at other outlets of maybe success, and archive.org, Paul Ginsberg out of Cornell, and what he did for the physics and math and computer science area of study, and how that's affected those fields over the the last decade. Archive started in 1991. And so we play into that, and Alexandra Elbakian with Sci-Hub, and how that's really been an eye-opening experience of the poor user experience of academic publishing. The Royal Society, while I was there, they were telling me that a lot of students and even faculty at some of these more prestigious universities are using Sci-Hub when they have access to everything on planet Earth from a Western sort of, monetary prerogative, but they're still using Sci-Hub, not because they want to steal, but because it works so much better. It's so much quicker. It's so much more direct. You're not going through, Science Direct and login credentials and verification and all of these things that, it slows the progress and slows science. So it's been a massive undertaking, and it's incredible right now watching it roll out. We have articles in the next week in Science and in Nature and Inside Higher Education. Our global premieres in Washington D.C. on September 5th. We have a second premiere at MIT Media Lab, or second screening rather, at MIT Media Lab on September 7th. We're traveling all over the world. We have screenings now in over 140 universities and institutions around the globe. So it's crazy how much interest has come into this documentary. And at the end of the day, I did this whole project not to educate scholars, not to educate scientists, but to educate those scientists and scholars' neighbors that have nothing to do with higher education. Why they should be aware of it, why they should care about this, why they should care that their tax money that funds important scientific and scholarly research is creating that research that then's locked behind a paywall, so that what they funded they can't have access to. And so that's been the I suppose the honor of this is just seeing this whole process kind of come full circle, and seeing the global outreach to want to see this film. So as a communication and media scholar, this is as good as it gets. I'm so fortunate to live a life that is filled with my passions, and to get to engage those passions. And I'm so honored to have had the opportunity to tell this story, and perhaps maybe move the needle up one iota on the need for open access. So, thank you again for having me. And if you have any more information about the film, we have our website, which is paywallthemovie.com, and that has all of our screening information. And as of early September, I think September 8th is when we plan to have the full film available for free with a CC BY 4.0 copyright, which is free for personal playback as well as free for public performances. So that seemed fitting for a documentary of this style. That I want anybody, regardless of their political or social or economical situation, to, if they want to, see this film.
Speaking of academic paywalls, we are also happy to share a new interview by our very own Elena Milova with Alexandra Albakian, the creator of Sci-Hub, a website that bypasses publisher paywalls. You can find a link to this interview on lifespan.io/roundup. A lot of interesting research has recently been published. Here's a brief rundown of some of the main takeaways in our research roundup. Newly published research from the Leuven Brain Institute in Belgium appears to indicate that neuroplasticity decline can be mitigated by continuously exercising the adaptability and flexibility of the brain, such as by learning new skills. On the topic of brain decline, the neurodegenerative disease Alzheimer's is still fairly mysterious. However, new research from Chile has shown that clearing aggregate tau protein from the brains of rodent models seems to yield cognitive function improvements. It is unclear if the effect would be the same in humans. Cellular senescence is a popular topic in anti-aging science, and a new study from the University of Exeter in the UK appears to show that delivering hydrogen sulfide into cells in culture slows down the pace at which cells turn senescent. You can read more on these studies and others, including one on the microbiome, at lifespan.io/roundup. There are some great events coming up in September. RadFest, a unique event in the field of life extension which combines both a review of scientific advancements and a powerful motivational component, will take place from September 20th to 23rd in San Diego. The event will feature brilliant speakers such as futurist and inventor Ray Kurzweil, investor Jim Mellon, and of course, Dr. Aubrey de Grey. And there are two events in Pittsburgh that I will be speaking at. On September 20th, I will be moderating a panel on human augmentation at the Thrival Innovation and Music Festival, where the ethics of life extension will be discussed. 2 days later, on September 22nd, I will be speaking at Body Hacks East, which will explore bioethics and gene editing technologies. Tickets to both of these events are on sale now, but are selling quickly, so you'll need to act fast if you'd like to attend. That's it for our second episode of the Rejuvenation Roundup podcast. We've heard some great feedback about episode 1, but since this is a new podcast, we're still trying to spread the word. If you'd like to help, all you need to do is subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, and post about it on social media. This will increase our reach and introduce more people to the importance of life extension science. Remember, you can get additional deep dives into science, technology, and futurism on the Future Grind podcast. Find out more at futuregrind.org. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan O'Shea, and on behalf of the team at Leaf, we wanted to thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time on the Rejuvenation Roundup podcast.